Hey everybody, we're going to finish up our giant squid book. We're picking up here on page 31, Diving Deeper. Remember we've been talking about Clyde Roper. He's a scientist that's been interested in studying more of the giant squid. On these two pages we have some amazing photographs along with some captions. And we also have a nice sidebar over here that gives us some information about another type of squid. So diving deeper, inspired by what he learned from the giant squid's cousins, Clyde was even more determined to search for his giant alive. He launched a National Geographic expedition to the Azores Islands in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, where sperm whales go to feed. The sperm whale would show him the way. Clyde knew he couldn't dive deep enough to follow the whales. Giant squid live far deeper than a scuba diver can go, so Clyde had to find other ways to seek his giant. He enlisted the help of National Geographic photographer Greg Marshall, the inventor of the Critter Cam. This special video camera can be attached to sea animals such as dolphins, seals, and sea turtles to record their underwater journeys. And we see that here. They've actually attached a Critter Cam onto a penguin. And then this one is super cool. It has a suction cup, and they're actually going to suction cup this to a sperm whale's head. Now these are designed, these Critter Cams are designed to come off after a short period of time, so the animal doesn't have it their whole life. Here we see a picture of a British sailing ship, the Silvery Light. They use this on their expedition. And then this sidebar is telling us about another type of squid known as the Colossal Squid. It's very large. You can see that here in this picture. Compared to the giant squid, the body is much bigger. However, the tentacles are much shorter. So how do you fasten a camera to a 100,000-pound wild animal? Very carefully. When the researchers were ready to attach the camera, they quietly paddled an inflatable kayak towards a whale resting just under the water's surface. The whale remained surprisingly calm as they attached the camera to its head with a suction cup. A video camera, a depth recorder, and audio recorder mounted on the suction cup recorded the whale's dive. An hour later, the camera was released from the whale. A pinging sound led the searchers to the camera floating in the water. So here's a really cool picture. You can see that they're approaching the whale, and they're in their small kayak. The excited scientists hauled the Critter Cam on board and played the video. Would they see the first glimpse of a giant squid in action? The whale had descended to 2,600 feet, or 800 meters. The lights on the camera could penetrate only a few feet into the darkness at that depth. But the sound recorder allowed the scientists to hear the calls of distant whales. The sperm whale returned their calls. Gradually, more and more sounds collected around the whale. Clyde's team could hear the whales greeting each other. Perhaps they were saying, "I found a great place to get squid." They sent the Critter Cam down 7 more times on that expedition. Clyde learned a great deal about the giant squid's habitat and its predators, but he still hadn't found his squid. Follow the food. A fellow scientist told Clyde he'd found deep-sea fish called orange Ruffy inside the stomachs of dead giant squid. So Clyde led an oceanographic cruise to the underwater canyon where fishermen net these fish. Sperm whales also gathered there. Clyde used an autonomous underwater vehicle, a AUV, a miniature sub controlled from the surface by computer. He felt as if he were swimming among the fishes as he directed the sub from the control room of the research ship. Clyde learned more about what the giant squid eats and the other animals that live at those great depths, but he did not find the giant squid. So here's a sidebar. Are giant squid good to eat? Clyde loves to eat squid, which is called calamari, when prepared as food. No one had ever tasted a giant squid, so Clyde, always curious, decided he should taste a specimen that one of his friends had stored in his fridge. It was very, very bitter, he recalls. The meat was analyzed, and scientists discovered the muscles contain a chemical similar to one in our urine. Gross. Here you see one of those AUVs. Ancient fish in ancient forests. Orange Ruffy are some of the longest-lived fishes in the ocean. Left undisturbed, these fish may live to be more than 100 years old. The orange Ruffy inhabit huge groves of ancient tree corals up to 33 feet or 10 meters tall, and more than 1,000 years old. Corals, though they may look like plants are actually animals, relatives of jellyfish and sea anemones. Orange Ruffy and the coral forest have been wiped out by deep-sea trawlers. Their heavy nets mow down the ancient corals to scoop up the orange Ruffy, which are sold as deep-sea perch. Before long, the orange Ruffy and this food for the giant squid will be gone. On Clyde's next research trip, he and a crew from Discovery Channel used a manned submarine, the Deep Rover. The sub explored an underwater canyon off the coast of New Zealand, where another favorite food of giant squid lives, hoki fish. Sperm whales know that too. Young sperm whales go there to gorge on giant squid and other kinds of deep-sea squids. Clyde figured that giant squid might be attracted to the bioluminescent light given off by most deep-sea animals, so he draped the sub with light sticks, like those that trick-or-treaters carry on Halloween. A pilot inside the tiny sub maneuvered the Deep Rover. Continual images from several video cameras beamed back to Clyde in the ship's control room as he watched expectantly. Clyde's team saw a blue-green bioluminescent light show from the many deep-sea creatures, but the giant squid remained hidden. However, with each new expedition, Clyde learned new things about squid predators and squid prey. He learned about the giant squid's ecosystem, the area it lives in, and all it contains. All of these findings provided more and more clues to solving the secrets of the giant squid. Discovering more about the deep-sea ecosystem can tell us about squid and, more importantly, the future of giant squid. Fishing boats drag heavy nets across the ocean floor and destroy the habitats of many bottom-dwelling animals that giant squid depend on for food. Clyde worries that the ocean food web is threatened by overfishing. If the food supply of the giant squid disappears, this in turn will take away a main food source of the sperm whale. And we know that in science when we see the relationship with those food webs. Clyde shared his findings with others who study giant squid, a small group of scientists called teuthologists. Though they are spread all around the globe, they are bound together by their passion for the chief. Clyde and his colleagues had to find a way to let the world know about the giant squid. They hoped more people would care about the giant squid if they could see one living peacefully in its natural habitat. They wanted to show the world that these monsters are fascinating creatures vital to the ocean environment. How to have a healthy ocean. Cephalopods, says Clyde, are great examples of biodiversity. This is because as a group, they are spread all over the world from shallow tropical reefs to the great depths of the ocean. A squid from Maine will look a lot like a squid from California, but they are slightly different because of their different habitats and living conditions. Enough so that they would not be able to mate and have offspring. They are known as different species. Preserving this fascinating variety of life is important for keeping all of life in the oceans healthy. Taking the bait. A Japanese doctor of zoology, Tsunemi Kubodera, continued the search using Clyde's documented evidence that sperm whales lead to giant squid. Dr. Kubodera chose to study an area off the Japanese coast where sperm whales come to feed each year from September to December. He programmed a camera to take a flash picture every 30 seconds and attached it to a long fishing line. Hooks on the line were baited with chopped shrimp and squids in the hope of luring a giant squid into the camera range. So here you see a map, and this is the area that they're looking for the giant squid. And a great diagram over here with labels that we see. Here's the pole and the flag, the floats, and here's the fishing line going down. Kubodera made 23 trips over 3 years to the area and repeated the experiment. Finally, a giant squid grabbed the bait hook. For 4 hours, the captured squid twisted and turned. Sometimes it attacked the bait. Other times it pulled away, trying to escape. The camera took 556 underwater images of the squid before it managed to break free, leaving a tentacle 18 feet long embedded on the hook. When the team brought the tentacle on board, the large suckers grabbed onto the deck of the boat and then onto Kubodera's fingers. So here we see that tentacle that is still stuck, and here's some of those awesome images that the camera was actually able to capture. These first photographs of a living giant squid were released in 2005. Clyde celebrated along with the rest of the squid world. Examining the photos, Clyde saw that a giant squid is far more active than anyone had expected. Despite its huge size, it was not a sluggish creature waiting for food to come near. It made Clyde recall his encounter with another aggressive hunter, the Humboldt squid. Why didn't the giant squid leave circular scars on the scientist? The scars on sperm whales are made by giant squid fighting to avoid the whale's jaws during a fierce but short battle for survival, which the squid usually loses. The giant squid that Kubadera captured was caught in about 3,000 feet of water, and it dragged the camera rig and cable all the way up to the 2,000 feet before it broke loose. By the time the snag tentacle broke off and the squid escaped, it must have been pretty exhausted calamari, said Clyde. The squid latched onto Kubadera's fingers, but didn't have the strength left to cause harm. And you see that here. He's showing you those suckers. And then there's the hook that it was caught on. Two years after Kubadera's photos, another breakthrough. His team recorded the world's first video of a live giant squid. They caught the squid at a depth of 2,133 feet, or 650 meters, and hauled it to the surface. As the team worked to bring it on board, the thrashing squid fought against the fishing line and shot powerful jets of water from its funnel. These first-hand observations confirmed for scientists that the giant squid is indeed a strong swimmer, an active predator, and a fierce fighter. There's Mr. Kubadera. And here's another great image of the squid that they captured. The hunt continues. The world has learned so much about ocean life since Clyde's days of tracking snails on the beach. He and his fellow teuthologists have discovered and shared a great deal about giant squid and other ocean mysteries. We know what giant squid eat. We know what eats them. We know more about how to find them. We know more about their distant and mysterious ecosystem. We know what they look like, alive and active. But there is so much more we need to find out about this legendary creature. We still know so little about its behavior and biology. Although Clyde Roper has retired from the Smithsonian, his determination to find a living giant squid continues, because he has many more questions yet to answer. Do giant squid gather in huge groups to court and mate like some other squids do? Do they protect their eggs until they hatch as mother octopuses do? Do they squirt ink? Is the ink bioluminescent? How strong are their arms and tentacles? There's an exhibit. Scientists hope someday to see at least one of the estimated millions of giant squids swimming, eating, courting, fighting, and just being itself in its home in the inky blackness of the deep sea. Clyde Roper often stops by the Sant Ocean Hall in the Museum of Natural History to visit the male and female giant squid that are on display there. Encased in plexiglass coffins, floating in a special liquid that preserves them for all to see, they almost seem like creatures from another planet. But Clyde knows better. Sea monsters are real, and I have seen them. Here's a sidebar about could you keep a giant squid in an aquarium? Scientists would love to capture a giant squid to study it, but could we keep it alive in captivity? Richard Lerner, the curator of fishes at the National Aquarium in Baltimore, Maryland, doubts it. There are so many unanswered questions. Will it eat anything else in the tank with it? Will it accept dead food? Can it live in shallow water since it's used to the pressure of the deep sea? Giant squid live in very cold temperatures, so the chiller would have to be immense. Giant squid aren't designed to handle walls. If it tried to jet propel backwards, it would crash into the walls of the tank. There is no tank in the world that could hold it. Here we see the glossary. So a lot of those words that we encountered within the book that were bold-faced, we see here listed along with their definition. And for Explore Further, we see they've listed several websites, some other books that we could reference, and then here's some notes from the author. And lastly, our index. So if we wanted to look up, let's say, about the mouth of the giant squid, we could look and see in alphabetical order what pages we could find that on, and then they give us some information about each of the authors. So I hope you enjoyed this book. It was a very fascinating read.